The next Song of Ascents in our Walking the Pilgrim Way series is Psalm 129. I want to read that psalm with you just now. A Song of Ascents. Greatly have they afflicted me from my youth, let Israel now say. Greatly have they afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. The ploughers ploughed upon my back, they made long their furrows. The Lord is righteous. He has cut the cords of the wicked. May all who hate Zion be put to shame and turn backward. Let them be like the grass on the housetops, which withers before it grows up, with which the reaper does not fill his hand, nor the binder of sheaves his arms. Nor do those who pass by say, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. This is God's word, and we know He'll bless it to us as we read it together. Psalm 129 is one of these pilgrim songs that was part and parcel of the worship of God's people throughout their history. These are psalms that were written in different contexts, but collected and collated together within the Psalter as a series of songs that God's people could sing as they ascended up to Jerusalem year on year on pilgrimage. These are psalms about the journey of faith, psalms about the travails and troubles and trials that God's people face and the joys that they have in worshipping God as well. And Psalm 129 is a potent mix both of complaint, lament and victory and joy. All of those ingredients go into this psalm to give us this beautifully worded and powerfully hopeful psalm. Today, let me just share a couple of features from that psalm with you. First of all, we find in this psalm a history of oppression. The psalmist is candid and powerful in what they say. Listen to verse 1. Greatly have they afflicted me from my youth. Let Israel now say, greatly have they afflicted me from my youth. Verse 3 employs this awful image of a ploughman not ploughing the earth, but ploughing the backs of God's people, tearing long and hard furrows into their flesh. This has been our experience, the psalmist says. This has been part and parcel of our journey of faith, that we have had setbacks, that we have had opponents, that we have faced pain for following God. That's certainly the case of God's people right throughout their history. Whether you look at that through the lens of the Old Testament, Israel violently oppressed in Egypt, this dreadful and wanton destruction of children within their community on the part of Pharaoh, this hard labour that they were put to. Or whether it's the insurgent attacks of the nations against their well-being as they wayfare through the wilderness. Or whether it's those existential threats that face Zion and Jerusalem over and over again as the enemies of God and of His people assail them and assault them and set up siege ramps against our well-being. From its very inception as a nation, from its youth, as verse 1 describes it, Israel had faced this kind of experience. Following God meant that pain followed them. That theme is carried right through the history of the church as well, whether it's the early church in Jerusalem facing the hostility of the authorities, facing the stoning of Stephen, or facing a history which is vexed by bloodshed, by pain, persecution and opposition to the true gospel of God. Believers in all ages can lift Psalm 129 to their lips and say, we have faced great oppression, we have faced great difficulty, that the glory of the gospel has shone brightest against a backdrop of difficulty, persecution, opposition. That helps us to assess our history as God's people, and it perhaps helps us to make sense of our own biography as individual Christians. The Apostle Paul could say that all who seek to live godly in Christ will be persecuted. That entailed in following the Lord Jesus Christ is the fact that the world cannot love us because it did not love Him. That the world that crucified the Son of God, the world that furrowed His back and beat His brow and crowned Him with thorns and impaled Him on a cross, is the same world which will always push back on the cause of God and the cause of the gospel. So reading Psalm 129 should give voice at times to the hardest experiences that the church and that individual Christians can face. It gives us room and space to say, we have faced opposition. We have a history of oppression. We have a history of difficulty. But not only is there a history of oppression, there's a long history of deliverance. And so verse 2, greatly have they afflicted me from my youth, is the repeated refrain, and yet it's resolved by this, yet they have not prevailed against me. Rhett Dodson, in his wonderful book Marching to Zion, of which I'll say more in a moment or two, says that so much hangs on that word yet in verse 2 of Psalm 129. There's the pivot of the psalm. There has been this great opposition, but there's also been this great deliverance. They have not prevailed against me. Verse 4, the Lord is righteous. He has cut the cords of the wicked. So the psalmist can see that on their own part, passively, God has been acting on their behalf. God has not allowed the enemies to so assail them that they overcome them and overthrow them, and the cause of God be lost. God is righteous. God is the one who will intervene to cut the cords of the wicked. Though men may rear up powerful, though men may seem invulnerable to any kind of loss, yet God is the one who will judge them. And God is the one who will cut the cords of the plough, which is used to beat the back of God's people. God is the one who will vindicate his cause and his gospel and his righteousness. And also actively, Psalm 129 gives us the assurance of God's justice. The fact that though for now Christians, people of God, can be very much kept under and very much persecuted, yet the cause of God will be ultimately vindicated. God will judge every unrighteous action of every individual person, every society and nation according to his grand assizes, in which his justice will not waver, in which his standards will not be questioned, and in which righteousness will be upheld eternally. And so the psalmist can take confidence that those who oppose God's people have no true posterity, that they'll be like the grass in the rooftops which never reaches full height, that they won't own the blessing of God that a persecuted people ultimately do. And so if you're to take a snapshot of Israel's history, if you're to take a snapshot of the people of God's history right across the span of time, there are moments that you could cut into where it looks like the cause of God is dreadfully reduced, dreadfully impugned, dreadfully imperiled. But the Lord, the righteous God, intervenes. The Lord, the righteous God, delivers. And he is the one who will uphold his cause and uphold his word. The supreme example of that is in the Lord Jesus Christ. That in the very moment when it seemed that his cause had capitulated to the cause of darkness and oppression and pain and sin, in that very moment he was publicly vindicated through the resurrection and declared to be the Son of God with power. And our lives are patterned on that. We follow the one who laid down his life that he might take it up again. We follow the one whose pathway was suffering and then glory. We follow the one who seemed to be delivered to death, but was ultimately delivered through death and delivers us from death. And so Psalm 129 helps us today. We can reflect on oppression. We can rejoice in deliverance. We can know the blessing of God, even if we're horribly undermined, desperately outnumbered. Where the name of God is impugned, where the cause of God seems imperiled, the righteous God will cut the cords. The righteous God's ways will be right and true, and he will deliver us. The Songs of Ascents make a wonderful devotional resource for us as Christians. If you've been enjoying this little series on walking the Pilgrim Way, a couple of books might help you if you wish to revisit these Psalms and make them your devotion. The first is Alec Mateer's wonderful little book entitled Journey, Psalms for Pilgrim People, published by InterVarsity Press. Alec Mateer's reputation as an Old Testament scholar is richly deserved, and he brings to bear in this book the weight of that scholarship in a way which is so lightly read and so beautifully written. This is a great devotional guide to the Songs of Ascents and also gives us some sense of the way that they're structured within the Psalter. Alec Mateer's Journey, Psalms for Pilgrim People comes with a tremendous recommendation. Secondly is Rhett Dodson's little book Marching to Zion, Ancient Psalms for Modern Pilgrims, published by Banner of Truth. This is a beautifully produced book, but more than that, it's a wonderfully written book. Rhett Dodson reflects on each of these psalms in a way which is compelling, enlightening, and then illuminates the original purpose of the text and its application in our lives. I find in preparing these little video shots week by week that my own heart is being greatly enriched by what Rhett Dodson has to say, and I commend this book to you very warmly. If you wish to read the Songs of Ascents, this will make a great companion to that exercise.